Hello there, friends. Welcome once again to the YouTube channel. This is a reaction video. We are going to speak about what's happening here in this channel. New St. Andrew's College is speaking about this. We have on the screens 5 men. 2 are asking questions. The other 3 are answering questions. And who are they? We have Joe Rigney. This is Joe Rigney here on the screen. I'm hoping you can see Joe. The second we have is Nick Salhim. He is this younger man here. The third is Jared Longshore. You need to know who these men are. These are some big name in the ring of the Christian nationalism group. These men are movers and the shakers of seeking to unite church and state. Take a picture, get to know them. Now, let's take a listen to this video. This is coming from the channel, and you got to read the title of this video: Make Washington, D.C. Christian Again. So let me give you a quick background of who these men are. Talking about Joe Rigney right here. Joe Rigney is the president of the New St. Andrew's College, NSA, as it is known, in Moscow, Idaho. It is a small classical Christian college tied to Christian church. He has a background in theology, and he's also associated with Doug Wilson. These are some names you should also know about. Joe, as a Calvinist, has also been influenced by John Piper Christian's hedonism, and is aligned with Wilson Federal Vision theology. Let's move on to number 2, Nick. Who is he? He is a pastor of Christ Church, Doug Wilson's church, and involved in Greyfriars Hall and ministerial training program. Is a younger leader of the Wilson's orbit and often seen as part of the next generation of pastors in Moscow's Native Reform community. He believes in the application of the Old Testament law to the civil governance and aligns with Wilson Federal Vision News. So who is Jared Longshore? Jared Longshore is also a pastor at Christ Church as well, a leader of the Greyfriars Hall. As far as his background is concerned, he is a vocal advocate for Christian nationalism, theonomy, and postmillennialism. The belief that the Christianity will gradually triumph in history before Christ's return. Here is the other interesting thing. All these 3 men have somewhat of a connection to Doug Wilson. And that's what the research is pulling up. And I had to say, who is Doug Wilson? Well, you should know who he is, because we did a video a little while ago of some of the remarks that Doug Wilson has made. And I'll tell you what, that man is something interesting.
And are you a Christian nationalist?
So I'm willing to be a Christian nationalist because because I prefer that phrase to the phrase I usually get called. So
what do you usually get called?
White supremacist,
white supremacist,
slave advocate, racist, all the theo-fascist, Christo. So the left really does hate Christianity.
Yes.
And with the phrase Christian nationalism, even the part of it that's coming from the left, trying to wrap that around our necks.
The way he's able to merge the political climate with the United States and some of the governments and constitution and merge them into such a beautiful package is something amazing to watch. Actually, I'll be honest with you. It's pretty amazing, but I'll leave it there. So there's an interview you can take a listen to if you care about what Doug believes, and it will be abundantly clear. So keep in mind, all these 3 men has been influenced by Doug, have somewhat of a network connection with him. So now, let's get to the video. Let's move about 40 minutes into the video right now, and let's take a listen.
I had it come up. I was in an interview on Synod Empathy recently with a reporter from NPR. And I went into the interview kind of ready to mainly talk about this. And in the middle of it, realized that I hadn't done my prep as much on Christian nationalism, which is where that she wanted to go. It was a great interview. They clipped 2 or 3 things. But the reason that she wanted to go there was because the other person she interviewed was David French. And David French sees this entire project as sort of like a buttress for Christian nationalists justifying their cruelty in order to seize power or something like that. That's his basic take on the whole Synod Empathy conversation. But as she was asking, it was interesting because the conversation pivoted and you could tell she was just curious. She was actually just so what actually do you think? And it was really helpful to be able to say the American founding.
Right.
Like what we had in this country. I'm interested in that. At the time of the founding, there were religious tests for public office in many states. there were blasphemy laws on the books. And she's like, how would that work with free speech? And I was like, the same way it did back then. Right. Like, it's just like the modern free speech regime is not the same as what the founders meant by Congress shall make no law concerning the abridgment of speech. Like, blasphemy laws were compatible with that.
And that's wild. I mean, you should talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
Those were around all through the 1800s. They continued. You have up, I think, to like early 1900s.
Laws, all of these sorts. So when we
Don't miss that. Sabbath laws is in the midst. But also, this part of the history, Ellen White speaks about this in the book, The Great Controversy, when she speaks about talking about the Pilgrim Fathers in chapter 16 of The Great Controversy. This is good to read because when you hear these discussions, oftentimes what is left out of the discussions is that when these laws were in the United States, during the Pilgrim Fathers in the early state of this country, there were persecutions as well. Sabbath keepers were in chain gang as well. The Quakers were being persecuted as well. Some of their families and children were persecuted because they did not go along with these religious laws. Oftentimes that is kept out of the book. It was still at an early stage. Thank God that many of the Pilgrim Fathers began to realize this was problematic. The same spirit of Rome that was taken from these other nations where Romish church and state union existed was brought to the United States at the early stage. They fought back against that. And that's the reasons why today we have the freedom that we do. But these things are left out of the conversation. These men make it look like it's always been these were good days. Well, good days for some, not for all. Small groups of different Christian denominations were being persecuted, and Sabbath keepers were among them.
1800s, they continued. You have up, I think, to like early 1900s.
Laws, all of these sorts. So when we as Christians say we want to have a society, we want society to be ordered and structured in such a way that it promotes Christianity and what it promotes and privileges the church. She was asking, like, so you're saying that Christians would be like privileged somehow? And I'm like, yeah, like they were at the founding. That's all. And it really does help to kind of like most moderns have there's just a failure of imagination. That they can only see like the way things have worked for the last 5 minutes are the only viable options, right? Outside of what they like, it's either this or it's like Nazi Germany, or it's this or it's like the Spanish Inquisition, and they go to these really extreme sort of like scary examples to try to keep people on the secular train. Mm-hmm. And when you can kind of de-escalate that and say like, what we had in this country for the first 175 years. Right?
There's a reason why at the end of taking the oath of office, you still say, so help me God.
Mm-hmm. Exactly right.
Or you have a Bible.
Yeah.
I mean, it was great to see Melania there with the Bible.
Yeah.
You had that.
Yeah. And so
they make it seem like, again and again, they make it seem like there's been positive Christian state, as if, and again, take it from a man who's a Christian, okay? I'm not an atheist. But what they're painting here is an accurate view of the historical record, because what the record has shown, when the church, state unite, it's never been good. It might be good for a few years, but what we've always had is massive persecution and intolerance and bigotry against people who did not go along with their religious laws. That's what he has shown. Yeah, it may not be communism, but I will say it's much worse in some cases. So what we have seen during the Dark Ages is what these men are seeking to bring back around. And they really believe these were the good days. No, these were terrible days. These were not good. Now, this is not to say we have to support and agree with the secular state of doing things, right? Secularism is not good either. But Christian nationalism is not the solution. And let's not even get into Catholicism. So what I'm trying to say is you don't want to pick either one of these evils. It is best to have a freedom of religion where church and state remain divided. We can clash our minds, but keep our hands in our pockets, right? We don't physically touch each other because the individual did not want to go along with what I believe. It's best to have that than to have the one that says, well, Christians should be privileged. Well, when Christians are privileged, in a sense that these guys are describing, what we've seen historically, those powers get abused, and when they get abused, people suffer. That's just what the record have shown.
And so those, like, we do have these roots that are there, and it's not like roots where, we had these roots in the year 1300 and we're trying to recover something 800 years old or something like that. Like, that's not the situation.
Actually, that is. It is. Well, the United States is not that old, 1798. Come on now. But if you go farther back into Rome, when Rome, pagan Rome became papal Rome, that was a church and state union that led to that. And what they've done to the many nations who did not agree with them, what did they do to the Waldensian church? What did they do during the Bartholomew massacre? What did they do with the three nations that were uprooted in Daniel chapter 7? The Heruli, the Ostrogoths, and the Vandals. And if you study more, some of these nations had religious freedom at the core of their beliefs. People make a whole big discussion about Trinity and untrinity. You miss the mark. It's really a religious freedom thing that the papal Rome had an issue with from the very start. And these were the issues from the very core. And if you trace the line of history, what you do find wherever religious intolerance, wherever church and state union takes place, there's always domestic violence in the home, right? Either the church is abusing the state or the state is abusing the church. Irrespective of what happens, the children suffer. So whenever there is domestic violence, the children suffer the most. And what we have found in history is that when these two powers unite, when church and state become bed partners, what happens as a result? Humanity suffers. Now, who suffers the most? Those who refuse to go along with the laws of the state. Those who say we will rather obey God instead of man. Those who say we're going to uphold the Bible against the religious dogma of society. They get persecuted. Now, the reason the state cannot persecute those who disagree with them is because they don't have the element of the church. And the reason the church cannot persecute people is because it doesn't have the sword of the state. It's one of those things, friends, you got to pray against it. But again, prophetically, we are told these things are going to come back around.
It's like in living memory. There are people alive today who remember what it was like to live in a country that observed the Sabbath at some level.
And it's still, I'll say in these roots, are also, you don't even have to go digging for them.
And again, which Sabbath are they talking about? Sunday. And again, I'm going to put a link in the description below. Let me read something to you here. This is a good chapter. I would highly recommend the Pilgrim Fathers. Ellen White does an excellent job with the historical record, showing there were some positive things, but there were some very disturbing things. And the Pilgrim Fathers, the reason they protested, the reason they began to speak, the reason they began to say, we need a church and state division, separation, right? This is not like separation from God. Like God cannot be in anywhere in our government. We don't believe that. But what we're talking about is when the church gets to seat with the kings, like they called their show State Kings, right? And they went on to speak about the civil government and how much of an influence it should have in the affairs of the state as far as being obedient to the voice of God, to the point where they're making civil politicians they're turning them into pastors. And they're not the same thing.
They're everywhere. Just step back. You walk into any major city in the United States and say, do you see mosques and minarets? No, we don't. What do you see? You see cathedrals. It's just true. Like now, a fair amount of them have been turned into coffee shops, and that we need to recover this. We need to fix that. But we are clearly not an Islamic nation. Mm-hmm. Do you see Buddhist temples everywhere? No. They might have one, now they're starting to get one like the storefront. You can have the storefront, but they haven't owned the center. It's in God we trust on the money. It's in God in all of our Pledge of Allegiance, all of our songs. And we just need to kind of own all of that.
The God that we're talking about is not just this generic, vague, you can't know anything about it, but it's the triune God of scriptures. It's the guy who sank Pharaoh in the Red Sea. That God is the one that we're talking about.
So if you guys could talk a little bit about what you would say to, say, Kash Patel, who puts his hand on the Gita, right? This is glaring in the idea of these Christian traditions. If you were giving a sermon on this, like how would you frame that this is kind of incompatible with our institution as Americans, Christian Americans, or our heritage as Christian Americans today?
I'd go Romans 13. Everybody loves that text. They love that text through COVID when they thought it meant that you just needed to submit to civil authorities. So I want to lean right into it. And it says that civil magistrates are both servants and ministers of God. And it's explicit. This is the triune God. The Apostle Paul is not talking about Allah. He's not talking about some higher power. He's talking about the triune God. So first proposition, civil magistrates are servants of the triune God. Second, servants must obey their masters. Conclusion, you must obey the triune God in your particular office. And you are not permitted to blaspheme him publicly and say that you are obeying him. The logic is like very straightforward and very simple for people to get, and it might make people uncomfortable.
Sure.
But this is it. And this is historically, this is Protestant political theory. This is what civic covenanting is all about. This is what even the lighter version of the American Westminster Confession of Faith says, that the civil magistrate must protect the church. Right? It doesn't say they must protect the mosque. It just doesn't. So if you want to try to secularize it and say, I think what the Presbyterians in America meant is that you were just supposed to protect
Houses of worship.
any building where there's an organization of people. That's not at all what they meant.
And to take that tack to say, what they really meant is protect houses of worship, or what they really meant was religion in general, generic religion. If you do that as a Christian, as a minister, you can't get mad when the progressives decide that the Constitution is a wax nose that can mean whatever they mean. Right? Like if you're going to treat your own religious confession with this kind of, we can make it mean what we want it to mean, then
it's a living document.
Then don't be surprised when the liberals figure out a better way to do it. They're going to go.
Okay, listen. Again and again, you get this thirst and hunger to unite church and state from this discussion. You get this idea that we really want to do something positive. We want the Christians to be in power. But again, for those of us who read our Bible and understand where this is going, and we are familiar with the prophecies of the Bible, you and I know what's about to take place. You and I know. I don't know if I need to preach. I know I'm preaching to the choir. But again, I'm sharing this with you to remind you, this is where we are in a prophetic history, friends. This is how these men are talking. Like, listen, man, they are serious. And again, is God waiting for these men to move? I'll be honest with you, I don't think he is. God is waiting for those of us who serve him in honesty and purity, those of us who have on the righteousness of Christ. He's waiting for fruit in his own church. And I'll be honest with you, that's what God is waiting for. So these discussions can be had, right? But nevertheless, I think God is more concerned about the condition of his own people in these last days, to be more exact, the Seventh-day Adventist people. But let me read something to you. In Acts of the Apostles, page 432, I'm reading here. When secular rulers unite with the ministers of religion to dictate in the matters of conscience, then it will be seen who really fear and serve God. When the darkness is deepest, the light of a godly character will shine the brightest. So the thing is, what we should be concerned with right now is not just what the discussions are regarding the matter of church and state union. That should be talked about. That should be highlighted. I'm all for it. But we should be much more concerned about the condition of our own hearts, because when church and state unite, when secular rulers and ministers of religion unite, we are told it will be seen who really fear and serve God. That should be our concern. Do I really fear and serve God? We don't have to be afraid of man. We should fear God and give him glory. We have to do this now, because what's about to take place will take place. And some of us may not even live to see those days. So it is today that we must be ready for what's about to come. But we are told again, When the darkness is deepest, the light of godlike character will shine the brightest. When every other trust fails, mercy, then it will be seen who have an abiding trust in Jehovah. So where is your trust? Is it in God or man? While the enemies of truth are on every side, watching the Lord's servants for evil, God will teach over them. Listen to this. God will watch over them for good. He will be to them the shadow of a great rock in a weary land. You want to book this one. And we are seeing these prophecies taking place as we speak. Statesmen, churchmen, or how do I say this? They are courting, they are dating, they are holding each other's hands. It won't be long before a wedding takes place. And when that happens, it will be seen which one of us really fear and serve God. And that right there should be our primary concern. I have a lot more I can say. I'm going to put a link in the description below. You can check out this video. Share your thought and perspective with me. Do you agree with my assessments and disagree? Do you think these men are correct? Do you think they're going too far? Why are they doing this is my question. I want to ask you, why are they doing this? Why do you think they are so hungry to unite church and state? What is the driving desire behind this? I would like to hear your thoughts in the comment below. Until next time, have a good one. Bye.